common sense. It's our purpose to bring to bear the principle of common sense and rational discussion to the issues of our day. America was created at a time of great turmoil, tremendous disagreements, anger, hatred. It was a book written in 1776 that guided much of the discipline of thinking that brought to us the discovery of our freedoms, of our God-given freedoms. It was Thomas Paine's Common Sense, written in 1776, one of the first American bestsellers, in which Thomas Paine explained, by rational principles, the reason why these small colonies felt the necessity to separate from the Kingdom of Great Britain and the King of England. He explained their inherent desire for liberty, for freedom, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the ability to select the people who govern them. And he explained it in ways that were understandable to all the people, not just the elite. Because the desire for freedom is universal. The desire for freedom adheres in the human mind, and it is part of the human soul. This is exactly the time we should consult our history. Look at what we've done in the past and see if we can't use it to help us now. We understand that our founders created the greatest country in the history of the world, the greatest democracy, the freest country, a country that has taken more people out of poverty than any country ever. All of us are so fortunate to be Americans. But a great deal of the reason for America's constant ability to self-improve is because we're able to reason, we're able to talk, we're able to analyze. We are able to apply our God-given common sense. So let's do it. This episode is going to continue with the trial in the form in which we're capable of conducting it, involving the Bidens and the collusion of the Democrats in Ukraine, which, as you can see now, is growing and very substantial. I'm going to call this episode "No Excuse for Not Investigating the Bidens," because there is no excuse other than corruption. So far in the episodes, very briefly, you've seen evidence in the form of witnesses, tapes, videos, documents, and we have more to go. You've actually seen the vital part of the case. This is at core, a two-witness, one smoking gun document, the money laundering document, and a deadly video in which there's a confession by Joe Biden, so clear that, again, it's astounding that confession didn't lead to an immediate investigation when he said it, except for the double standard that we have in Washington and the corrupt, sick inability of the press to pick up major crimes by Democrats and to exaggerate minor things for Republicans. There is no doubt a great deal of resistance in investigating this case. The moment, way back in November of 2018, that I was shown that Joe Biden was involved in this case, I said almost spontaneously, well, it wasn't quite doggone it, it was a word similar to it. Why does he have to be involved in this case? Because they are going to kill me when it comes out, because he's one of the protected ones. He's one of the protected ones, like Hillary Clinton, who was protected from, smashing up 13 cell phones, bleach bidding a server. I can't even say these things and understand why she wasn't prosecuted. And destroying 33,000 emails. And she wasn't prosecuted. Fix. I knew they'd do the same thing for Biden because he was their hope against Trump. Although at the time, it was 2 years before the election. He looked to me like he couldn't walk across the street, couldn't make it to the finish line. I didn't think of him as a presidential candidate. I know they'd love to say that, but I didn't. But there's so much resistance to investigating this. I've been in and out of the prosecuting business for some time, and I think I'm not bragging if I say I've had a lot of success at it. This is the clearest case of bribery, extortion, money laundering, and if you'd like to take me beyond Ukraine to China, Iraq, Pennsylvania, I could do a RICO case here against the Biden family enterprise that was shaking down people for 30 years selling Joe's office. Every time Joe was the point man, the family got rich. Joe didn't know, like Kate Corleone? Or do you think I'd be able to squeeze out a little evidence that he knew? I think I would. It is disgusting that this is not being investigated. Recently, the following statement was attributed to a United States senator who I respect. But this gives you an example of the ridiculous thinking trying to avoid the obvious. The senator said, let me quote it accurately, take very cautiously anything coming out of the Ukraine. Thank you, Senator. Of course you take everything cautiously that comes out of the Ukraine because it's filled with corruption, which the president recognized. And it's the reason for all the hesitation and difficulties. The Democrats disputed. But Senator, could you please learn the facts of the case and not just talk to protect another senator? This case does not come out of the Ukraine. It comes out of the mouth of Joe Biden. I don't have to rely on a single piece of Ukrainian anything to prove that Joe Biden committed bribery when he was vice president of the United States, and it is an outrage that he's not being investigated for it because our press has gone corrupt and our law enforcement is scared of being criticized by the Biden press for a political prosecution. It is not a political prosecution. It's a prosecution for a high crime at the highest levels of two governments, the vice president of a country and the president of the country selling out their countries. And then a trail of millions and millions of dollars crookedly being made by the Biden family. I don't care if you're a United States senator. I don't care if you're the head of the biggest club. And I don't care if you're the most important person in Washington. When you do that to my country, when you sell out my country as often as the Bidens did in China, in Ukraine, in Iraq. You heard it all in the last podcast, didn't you? I don't have to do it again. Every time Biden was point man, the Biden family made millions. And Biden knew about it. That is bribery. In fact, when I go through the bribery statute, they violated almost every different subsection of the bribery statute because each one of the bribes is somewhat different. A fascinating case, fascinating RICO case. The words that Biden says in January of 2018 before the Council on Foreign Relations, my gosh, we've heard them often enough, haven't we? But I want you to listen to them. I want you to listen to them one more time. Shortened version. I just want you to remind you of how clear his admission, his confession is.
And I was supposed to announce that there was another $1 billion loan guarantee. And I had gotten a commitment from Poroshenko and from Yatsenyuk that they would take action against the state prosecutor, and they didn't. So they said they were walking out to press conference. I said, no, I said, I'm not going to, or we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Well, son of a bitch. Got fired. And they put in place someone who was solid.
The last time we analyzed this, we analyzed it under the first subsection of the bribery statute. I don't want to complicate the legal issues here, but all the lawyers are fighting, is it bribery? Was Poroshenko an official that could be bribed? Guys, I don't know. Go back to your law school, criminal justice 101, bribery. Huh? Now will be a good time to take a short break. For those of you who know me, in addition to law and politics, I'm passionate about the Yankees, baseball, football, all sports to watch, golf to play, history to read, opera, classical music to listen to and watch, and cigars to relax and socialize. And I have definite opinions on the best cigars for the right time and the right place. And you'll hear about that too. But the revolution in cigars took place in the 1990s. Most cigars then were machine-made with foreign ingredients. Now it's just the opposite. Most are hecho a mano, man-made. All organic, natural, and premium. The revolution was led by one man and one man alone, Marvin Shanken, and Cigar Aficionado magazine. Marvin had been rating wines quite successfully for Wine Spectator magazine, and he brought the rating system to cigars. The first cigars rated in the 90s were gone in a flash. Even now, the first thing I do when I get my magazine is I go right to the ratings page. Here it is. 93, 91. Oh yeah, I'll go for that one. Then there'll be 94. Whew, 92. Problem is you got to get there fast because they go fast. This revolutionized the cigar industry and quality rose to the top. Then there's the Cigar of the Year. Try to get them as fast as possible because they're gone pretty quick. This magazine revolutionized the industry. And I'll tell you what, this month is Cigar of the Year. Cigar of the Year. What are these for? Cigar of the Year. You better get this magazine quick because these cigars are going to be gone very, very quickly. Go to the link on our website and order it. And you'll be able to get down to your cigar store and get to smoke a few of these and you let me know which ones you like better. Because we can have a really good conversation about it. Sometimes I do agree with Marvin, and when I don't, I let my opinion be known, and Marvin usually says, stick to the law. Also, along with rated cigars, there are articles on politics, sports, interesting profiles, and Marvin also has Wine Spectator, Spirit Advocate, if you like wine, if you like scotch, if you like bourbon, if you like rye, if you like vodka, if you like gin, they're the magazines for you. And you know what? Subscribe to Cigar Aficionado right now through the link on our website. Welcome back. There's a second section under the bribery law, and I'm going to put it up there so you can see it. I kind of broke it down to simplify it. Here's how you prove, beyond any doubt, from that tape, that Biden committed the serious federal crime of bribery while he was the Vice President of the United States. And he did it with the President of another country. He dishonored our country and their country at the highest levels. The statute goes something like this. You see that first line. Being a public official, I'll read the first side, seeks anything of value for any other person in return for A, being influenced in the performance of any act, B, being influenced to commit any fraud on the U.S. Now, let me show you how simple it is. Here's how I prove it in trial. Here's the chart I put before a jury. And there's enough evidence with the confession and then the Ukrainian corroboration to prove it beyond to prove it, okay? Let's start. Being a public official, yes, he fits that. He was the Vice President of the United States. Seeks anything of value. Yes, he was seeking the dismissal of the case of the prosecutor who was investigating his son's boss, who was paying his son millions, and his son's company that had stolen billions. Pretty good. That's pretty good anything of value, huh? For any other person. Doesn't have to just be for yourself. Yes, the other persons were his son, Hunter Biden, and Mykola Zlochevsky. Let's show his picture and name again, because it's hard to remember Zlochevsky. So we'll interrupt the bribery there. Okay, that's Mykola Zlochevsky. Guy stole $5 billion from Ukraine in 2014. He is now sitting somewhere in Switzerland, Monaco, able to go back to there, and he's kept all but about 200 million of the $5 billion thanks to our former Vice President, Joe Biden. Then it goes on to say, in return for A, being influenced in the performance of any official act. Yes, he was influenced in the performance of approving the $1 billion loan guarantee, as he explains to you. Or, you got an alternative. You can convict him both ways. Or, being influenced to commit any fraud on the United States. Dispensing a loan guarantee of $1 billion that's supposed to be dispensed on the merits in order to get a prosecutor fired is a fraud on the United States, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. So, God, I tried a lot of cases. I don't ever remember one this being this clear. My God, if this were a case on a highway commissioner or a congressman or any Republican, you would have been prosecuted 2 years ago. They'd have been investigated by the Justice Department, prosecuted. My God, cases much less than this get prosecuted. You got to ask yourself why, what's wrong with us? And don't we have to cure that corruption? And again, to respond to the senator who we will not name, who's worried about Ukrainian influence on the case, you don't need any Ukrainians for that. That's American language, that's an American vice president, and that's an American statute. I could analyze 3, 4 more statutes for you to show you how he violated them. I don't want to bore you. So the issue is not really having to look much further than the fact that when Donald Trump was first alleged to have been involved in something wrong in the Ukraine, I hope you remember that the headlines were that he bribed, in essence, President Zelensky. And the bribery was something like Trump refused to give the president of Ukraine military aid if he didn't investigate the collusion in the Bidens. That created mass hysteria. Headlines all over the place. Nobody even waited to ask Trump. Did he know? Didn't he know? Biden always gets to say, I didn't know. And then it goes away. Case of Trump, headlines immediately. Trump bribed the president of Ukraine. Impeach him, shoot him, get rid of him, do something to him. That created mass hysteria for a couple of days. Yet it was entirely untrue. He didn't threaten him. He didn't withhold aid. We have the conversation. Most important thing is Zelensky said I wasn't even pressured about 10 times. It's entirely untrue. Yet it caused an impeachment and, thank God, an acquittal. Yet Biden said exactly the same thing. He said, I told the president of the same country, different president, the crooked one, Poroshenko, I told the president of the same company that I'm going to withhold your needed $1 billion loan guarantee if you don't fire a prosecutor. Isn't that the same thing? Vice president, president make a difference? The vice president, the president, pressuring the president of a foreign country to take an official action and holding back needed money for the government to bribe or extort. Clear as the nose on your face, except in the case of Trump, the transcript proves it didn't happen. In the case of Biden, it proves it did happen, and Biden is still running around free. Every other American would be under investigation by now and probably indicted by now. Not probably. Let's cut the nonsense. He would be indicted by now. And it stinks. Not only that, Biden makes this statement in front of very distinguished men and women. The Council on Foreign Relations. Oh, they are very, very smart. They will all tell you that. And they are all very, very well educated. They will tell you that. In fact, the first thing they will ask you is, what school did you go to? And if you say School of Hard Knocks, they kind of look down on you. Or if you say any school other than about 5. But they're very smart. I'm not trying to be sarcastic. They're very, very smart. So Biden admitted in front of them, flat out bribery, what they accused Trump of, and everybody picked it up like that. Right. And not a single one of our geniuses on the Council of Foreign Relations sat there and said, gee, that's kind of funny. First of all, when did I ever hear about a vice president or a president trying to get a prosecutor fired? Usually when you're trying to get a prosecutor fired, you're trying to fix a case. That's usually an inherently suspicious situation. When did I ever hear that before? And how about our enterprising, energetic, fearless press? Did any of them pick it up? When Trump said it, you saw the headlines. Wow. Woo! World was over. When Biden said it, I guess they were sleeping during the speech. The straight out admission of violating the bribery statute, about as clear as it can get, didn't mean anything to them. And how about our intrepid law enforcement that treats everybody the same, Republican and Democrat and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, right there in front of their noses. And the U.S. Attorney Justice Department. Biden admits bribery in front of your face, and you don't know it, you can't pick it up. You're too insensitive to democratic crime. You can't pick up bribery at the highest level of two governments? What has happened to us? How could one statement by Trump lead to all these headlines? And then the same statement, essentially, even though Trump's statement was false, Biden's statement was true. Let's see how many headlines that led to. This is a terrible thing. This is not a usual situation. This is a terrible place our country is in right now with this double standard. You know that if the name were Trump and Trump Jr. and President Trump had said that, you know. Even the senator who wants to avoid going after another senator, and you know if it were Trump or Trump Jr., you know it would be treated totally differently. Headlines the next day, grand jury within days, special prosecutor probably, Nadler and Schiff, and if they still have the energy, would, have hearings, and even if it turned out to be untrue, they'd have hearings anyway. And it's Biden, and it's completely It's completely forgotten. Do you think that's fair? Do you think that's what America should be all about? And do you think we should just let this go? Or if we just let this go, doesn't it just continue to happen? How many more Clintons and Bidens walking away from extremely serious federal felonies are we going to get? How many fraudulent Clinton foundations are we going to get? And that whole piece of evidence is also overpowering. That was a cash cow for the Clinton family. And now we got the Biden family enterprise, taking in millions every place Biden is a point man. And we got he's one of the people. I'll tell you what, though, Ukrainians aren't stupid at all. Ukrainians are well-educated, intelligent people, and have been somewhat maligned as a group because they have some corrupt people. Hey, by the way, when they look at us, and they look at Biden and Clinton, and I don't think they have too much of a view of us either. I mean, our leaders under Biden weren't doing too much better. Biden was running an operation where, gosh almighty, pay for play had been ratcheted up into millions and hundreds of millions of dollars. And this case gets opened up. You're going to find out about that. It's another reason why the Democrats are fighting to the death not to open up this case. But every Ukrainian knows that Biden was involved in corruption. I think Teleshenko told us that last time.
Oh, yes. There was a lot of pressure.
Did everyone know that Biden had threatened Poroshenko
Yes.
with cutoff in money if he didn't fire Shokin?
Within the government and people outside the government, some did knew, and within the government, everybody knew that Biden was the pressure point on firing Shokin.
So let me show you why this is a matter of national security. One of the major issues between the United States and Ukraine, one of the major things about Ukraine, and why it's so important to us is it's right there, right next to Russia. It's it's a place Russia has for 1,000 years wanted, the breadbasket of Europe. From our point of view and the point of Western Europe, it's a hedge an important hedge against Russia. And of course, they've been invaded. They're invaded by the Russians. They were killed by the Russians, and the Obama administration and Joe Biden as the point man, he got a lot of money, but he failed in his mission to push the Russians back. In fact, he wouldn't even give the Ukrainians lethal weapons. Like, what are they going to do? Here, the Russians, big guns, and it took President Trump to come in and give them the lethal weapons. But how are we going to get them to set up an honest government? I don't mean like perfectly honest, but I mean not systemically corrupt, which is what they are. And here's why that affects us. They need $400 million for military aid. I don't know, maybe $100 million gets to the military. There's a report I'm going to show you in the next episode where $5.3 or $5.7 billion in aid to Ukraine is not properly accounted for. I didn't say $5 or $50. I said $5.3 to $5.7 billion in aid. So anytime you're giving them money for a critical purpose, you don't know if it's going to be used for that purpose. So getting them to be honest and accountable bears on our national security because they cannot be very effective as a wedge between Russia if basically they're not doing anything but stealing money. And we're stealing money with them. So President Trump was absolutely correct in bringing this up with Zelensky. And what they did to him is horrible. It's against the interests of our country. You cannot get Ukraine, to be honest, if you don't hold Joe Biden accountable. Because as you heard, they all know he was involved in corruption. And he went there for 13 trips, which is excessive for a vice president. Who knows what he was doing there? You may find out that it's a lot more than you know about. He would go there and he'd say, Ukraine must be corrupt, if you could remember the sentence. Sometimes he'd say Russia or Budapest or, you know how he is. But he would say, Ukraine has to be corrupt. You know what they say to their breaths, under their breaths? Maybe America, Joe, you should start first. Everybody in the Ukraine knew about the son. Everybody in Ukraine knew that the son was working for the most crooked man in the Ukraine, who had fled to Monaco. Everybody knew he was getting millions, not the 50,000 a month that the New York Times euphemistically put in. Everybody knew the money was being laundered. And everybody knew the reason. I don't know if he even showed up for a job. The reason was to buy Joe Biden's protection. So that Poroshenko, if he tried to come after Burisma, if he tried to take the $5 billion away from Zlochevsky, there'd be Joe Biden there to stop him, who was more powerful than Zlochevsky because he was handing out the money. And when it came time to do it, Biden did it. It happened coincidentally, just as Shokin raided the Burisma office, arrested them, just as the money laundering document came in, Biden's on the phone 4 times demanding Shokin be fired. And he does save the kid, the company, and the crooked organized crime oligarch. That's about the biggest accomplishment Joe had as vice president. Maybe he'll put it down as one of his accomplishments if he runs. But he's not running. I mean, come on. You got to walk across the street to do that. Biden's actions in the Ukraine dishonored the United States of America, and he must be held accountable. If we can't hold him accountable, if we can't hold the vice president accountable, how do we expect them to hold their crooked politicians and oligarchs and people who are double dealing with Russia? How do we expect them to hold them accountable? Don't we look like a bunch of complete phonies? Well, that sure is what the Obama administration was. That is not what the Trump administration was. They have run into a president who really does want to drain the swamp. And many, many Ukrainians have called me and told me over the last couple of weeks, as I've been attacked viciously by the Democrats and their sycophant media, that President Trump should be thanked for finally taking the issue on, because they didn't know what Obama was doing, but he was basically just watching this all happen. And when I say the evidence is clear, this money laundering document, nobody made this up. This money laundering document came in right in the middle of the time that Shokin was fired. The money laundering document, I'm going to show it to you again because it is a smoking gun that you cannot run away from. I want someone to tell me they're not going to prosecute this. There it is. Latvia tells Ukraine that Hunter Biden is under criminal investigation for being involved in money laundering. $14.6 billion. It goes from Ukraine, loan, to Latvia, loan, through Belize, loan, to Cyprus. 3 different companies. It wasn't a loan at all. It was a payment of money to the board, $14.6 million. That's a good board payment, but payment to the board. The board members all listed, you see it, they got money after their name. Then you get to his partner, Devin Archer, and Hunter Biden, no money after their name, but they got money because there's money left over. So the prosecutor, Kulyuk, who you're going to hear from in a minute, I'm going to summarize in a minute, the prosecutor Kulyuk calls up and says, how much for those guys? You know what he's told? The American embassy told us we couldn't tell you. He never got the amount. I got the amount because Devin Archer, that other great American involved in the Biden scheme, got prosecuted and convicted of securities fraud. And in the securities fraud case, the document came out showing the $3 million coming to their company, Rosemont Seneca. And it shows a lot more. So that's the case. No Ukrainian witnesses, did I? That one document from Latvia. Everything is American, Senator. How do you run away from it, Senator? What is it? What is it with you guys? I mean, a senator can disgrace the United States. A senator can take bribes. His family can make millions off his public office. He can make fools out of us in Ukraine. He can let his son become a partner with the Bank of China while he's negotiating with China. He can let his brother get a highway contract for $500 million in Iraq when he's the point man for Iraq. And you guys don't get angry. Where's the integrity? Where's America is more important than your club? Well, let me just finish by quickly going through the Ukrainian witnesses who merely are corroborators. Shokin says Biden pressured Poroshenko to fire me because I was investigating Biden's son. Well, he's just telling you what Biden told you. If Shokin's lying, then Biden's lying. I mean, he does add the son, but we can prove the son a million other ways. So Shokin's just a little reminder of his testimony. And the president made that complaint to you a number of times in 2015. The complaint that, if I can read from your affidavit, consider the possibility of winding down the investigation actions in respect of this company, but I refuse to close this investigation.
И в 2015 году несколько раз президент, вы об этом пишете в вашем заявлении в австрийском суде, указывал на необходимость как бы завершить расследование.
And did he tell you where the pressure, did President Poroshenko tell you that he was getting direct and intense pressure from the U.S. administration and Joe Biden?
Поделился ли президент Порошенко с вами информацией, что его в свою очередь прессует посольство США и Джо Байден?
Нет, Джо Байден, посольство я не знаю, а Джо Байден точно.
I'm not sure about the embassy, but definitely Joe Biden, that he conveyed to me.
So Shokin just repeats what Biden says, except in a different language, and with a little twist to it, that the son was under investigation. And then, of course, that Latvian document proves that he was under investigation. There are 10 more, but the Latvian one comes from Latvia, not Ukraine. I got 10 other Ukrainian ones to prove he's under investigation, and about 8 witnesses. Then there's the Prosecutor General, Yuri Lutsenko, who replaced Shokin and was the one who had to do the dirty deeds of dismissing the cases. Well, he testifies, he says that Biden and Archer was put on the board by Zlochevsky for political protection, not because they knew anything. What he's saying is that Zlochevsky bribed Biden to get the point man who was giving out all the money and was the most powerful guy in Ukraine by putting his son and his son partner on the board, paying them for basically no-show, useless jobs, because he needed them available to protect his company and his ill-gotten $5 billion if the president of the Ukraine came after it, as he was doing. And when he did come after it, as we pointed out, Biden stepped in and stopped it and earned his money. And I am told by the next witness, Konstantin Kulyuk. Konstantin Kulyuk is a deputy prosecutor general. He was with this case from the very beginning. He's the guy who really is on top of this case, and he is dedicated to it. This is a real FBI agent type, cop type, like I used to work with when I put the mob in jail and the crooked politicians. Konstantin Kulyuk says the same thing, that the proof is that Zlochevsky hired Biden to protect himself and his company, and that the payments were in 2 parts. One, the money to Hunter Biden, Devin Archer, and the Rosemont Seneca firm for their services. And then, he says, there was a second flow of cash, which was basically, the only proof he has of that right now is an $900,000 payment for Joe Biden being lobbied. I cannot go further except to say Kulyuk, on my last conversation with him, told me he is certain there are more payments, although he has been blocked by the failure of American authorities to cooperate with him, although that may have ended. So we'll have to see if it develops as more than 900,000. He also describes the laundered payment that we told you about, in which the money went from 3-4 countries to the United States. And he points out that one of those companies, I think it was the one you see up there known as Digitech, is owned by Victor Pinchuk, who is another oligarch who is the biggest contributor to the Clinton Foundation. And there might be something very interesting there too, but that'll be for another time. And the second method of payment I told you was the $900,000 for lobbying Joe Biden, where Kulyuk estimates that there are greater payments. He actually gave me an amount that he thinks, but I'm not going to discuss that with you until we have it more solid. Here's the quote from Kulyuk that probably means the most. And Kulyuk I have not put on the screen because he's in the middle of actively investigating, and it really would not be helpful if his picture was seen, throughout. So, and maybe that will end in a short while. But here's the quote that I think summed up the whole case. Quote, this is the deputy prosecutor general who's been in charge of the case throughout. Quote, Joe Biden actively facilitated the closure of criminal cases against Mr. Zlochevsky and the officials of Burisma. Notice he doesn't talk about Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden was a collateral matter. The big money in this case was getting Zlochevsky, the billionaire organized crime oligarch, out so he could keep most of his $5 billion. Zlochevsky have said that he had to give up no more than $250 to $300 million to get out. Those are the bribes that he spread around. You can't believe the money that was spread around the Ukraine. So he got out, kept most of his $5 billion, kept his crooked company. They are presently free of all the crimes they committed against the people. And Kulyuk will also testify that the black ledger that was created, which was fraudulent, was really created not as evidence against Manafort. It was created to be used as a way to get Trump out of the campaign. They kept talking about it as it will destroy his campaign when it's revealed in late August of 2016, when Ms. Chalupa, who you may remember, is asked about it by Teleshenko. You remember from the tape that she says it'll destroy the campaign. And when Teleshenko releases it in the press conferences, he says it's going to destroy the campaign. They got surprised. It didn't destroy the campaign. So they did like Peter Strzok did, who was going to prevent him from being president but had a plan for after. The plan for after was, let's get Manafort under investigation. But the document is a fraud. Nazar Kolonitsky. Nazar Kolonitsky is the head of what they call SAP. He's the special prosecutor. He agrees with the testimony of Andrei Teleshenko and with the deputy prosecutor general that the black ledger is a fraud. He said in August of 2016 it was being used not as a law enforcement piece of evidence, but as a political attack, and he went and complained at the time, contemporaneously, to the U.S. Embassy. Christopher Smith, who told him not to worry about it. Very consistent with Maria Antonovich's testimony when Jim Jordan asked her, did you ever do anything about all the things that you knew the Ukrainians were doing to attack Trump? The names they were calling him, Teleshenko, Sitnik, the president, Shali, the ambassador, all attacked him. The black book that was improperly put out. I mean, you were concerned with collusion in our election. You're real concerned about Hillary. Did you ever once complain as the ambassador of the United States of America, not as the ambassador of the Democratic National Committee, did you once complain to your friend, the crooked Poroshenko? Answer, when she put her head down, was no. You need to know any more about her? I mean, we know plenty about her. So, there are other witnesses and documents. Once again, I complete this by saying it comes down to Biden's statement, documents. The Ukrainians are not critical. The Ukrainians just corroborate. Ukrainians say what Biden told us, which I guess was hard to believe. So next time, we're going to get a special opportunity that rarely happens. We're going to get to look into the prosecutor's file. You don't usually get a peek into a prosecutor's file, even after the case is over. But you'll get a look at it, and I think when you get a look at it, you're going to say to yourself once again, why hasn't this case been prosecuted 2 or 3 years ago if there isn't a serious problem of corruption going on, not in Ukraine, not in Kyiv, but in the United States and in the swamp? There is, and we are determined to change it. Thank you.
I think you're talking about a different sort.
What protects all of us is that the government has to have proof beyond a reasonable doubt, at least under Justice Department standards, before we indict anybody. And that's a pretty substantial hurdle. And no one is going to go to jail, and no one's going to be indicted unless that standard is met.
Trap. 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 Trap.
And then they start calling for scalps. So, nowadays I'm constantly hit. Why aren't people going to prison for what they did to the president? On the other side, throw Bill Barr in prison. And these things take time.
Trap. Noun. 1. Trap. Definition of trap. Entry 1 of 4. 1. A device for taking game or other animals, especially one that holds by springing shut suddenly. 2a. Something by which one is caught or stopped unawares, also a position or situation from which it is difficult or impossible to escape. Trap.
These things take time.
Trap. 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 Trap.
FBI's Andy McCabe and Peter Strzok laughing at the news stories about their scheduled arrest. FBI insiders said the best joke of the weekend came not during the televised Oscars, but a less than 30-second thinly sourced story circulating that Andrew McCabe and Peter Strzok would be arrested on Tuesday. One thing is for sure, neither former FBI official is worried about getting arrested anytime soon, according to Bureau colleagues who worked with the duo. He says, "I know they both got a good laugh out of that story," one top-level FBI insider and former close colleague of McCabe and Strzok said. "They're both packing their toothbrushes right now, I bet." Very comical. The rumor circulated on Twitter and was picked up by media publication with a beyond haphazard track record on national security reporting. Another Justice Department insider responded, "It doesn't even make any sense. Logistically," the Justice source said. "Why would you indict both simultaneously? You presumably would charge a subordinate first and see if they implicate any bigger fish in exchange for a deal. Stroke worked for McCabe at the FBI. This is how the Justice Department and their criminal case food chain works, despite what you may have read on the internet. If McCabe and Stroke are not concerned about indictments, where is U.S. Attorney General William Barr?
And then they started
Perhaps
going
he is
down.
laughing
So
too.
Nowadays, I'm constantly hit. Why aren't people going to prison for what they did to the president? On the other side, throw Bill Barr in prison. And these things take time.
In 1943, the following directive was issued from party headquarters to all communists in the United States. It read, "When certain obstructionists become too irritating, label them after suitable build-ups as fascist or Nazi or anti-Semitic, and use the prestige of anti-fascist and tolerance organizations to discredit them. In the public mind, constantly associate those who oppose us with those names which already have a bad smell. The association will, after enough repetition, become fact in the public mind."
One may find themselves asking, what are socialism and communism? Well, it's a promise that never gets delivered because totalitarianism gets in the way. The promise of socialism or communism is free stuff. But before anyone can get any of the free stuff, the government has to confiscate the stuff and take the government's cut of the stolen stuff. Totalitarianism. The end result is very little free stuff is available for the people who supported this whole idea of socialism or communism. And the people who opposed the change get killed. 100 years of communism and 100 million dead. Socialist and communist leaders simply want to be at the top of the pyramid, in control, and avoid the whole totalitarianism part themselves. This is what some people call reverse Robin Hood. Take from the poor and give to the rich. You and I get death or nothing, and the leaders get it all. This is why socialism and communism do not work. Exclusive. The feds locked down a dangerous lawsuit that threatens to expose the Clinton Foundation in one of the biggest public thefts in U.S. history. Even the feds, the DOJ, the IRS, the FBI are calling it the most dangerous lawsuit in America. one that threatens to expose a massive Clinton global fraud of epic proportions. A big reason why the federal bench has sealed the case. Thomas Paine, from over at the True Pundit, detailed this little-known lawsuit that has rogue factions of the federal intelligence apparatus as well as DC elites scurrying and beyond concerned. Paine detailed the controversial case on his podcast on Tuesday night.
We sent our appeal in with a photocopy of the FBI and the IRS CID on their jackets removing boxes from the Clinton Foundation after they had brought a 757 down and taken all the materials out of the Clinton Foundation, Little Rock, Arkansas. We sent that with our appeal to demonstrate to the IRS that your letter coming from Atlanta doesn't reconcile with what's going on in Little Rock.
Yep, that's what we do. Well, there we go. The best minute and 20 seconds of the week with my 70s police cop show intro. Yeah, a lot of stuff going on. I know I say that every week, but it really is a lot of stuff going on this week. And today, Tuesday, was completely insane in Washington on the Department of Justice, or the Department of Injustice, depending on how you feel about it. You know how I feel about it and where I stand on it. I've talked so much on the phone today, and we did a Patreon show earlier tonight. I've been talking all day like a fool. Now I know what it's like to be on Fox. You guys thought I was going to lead off with an old FBI clip about J. Edgar Hoover. I've been doing that for the last couple weeks. People are like, oh, I really like those. And today I said, boom, I'm going to change it up. Throw people a curveball out there. That was from my House Oversight meeting on the Clinton Foundation. So you can imagine where we're going to be going with this. But very interesting. And that came 4 months after True Pundit reported that there was a 757 owned by the Justice Department that was parked on a runway in Little Rock, Arkansas, and federal agents were loading boxes of evidence onto it. The story broke in August 2008, and people said, oh, you're crazy. You're making stuff up. They weren't loading evidence. That's not a Justice Department plane. We traced the tail number. It belongs to the Justice Department. We traced the flight. Left from Virginia and ended up in Little Rock, Arkansas. Then people were taking film and pictures of the FBI and the IRS, Criminal Investigation Division, loading boxes on, coming from the Clinton Foundation. And then, it came out 6 months later, 5 months later, in this congressional hearing, and people were like, oh, you guys were right. Well, you're still full of crap, but you always seem to be right. I mean, you can't stop trying to impress these people a long time ago, and we just decided we're just going to do what we do. Criminal Investigation Division loading boxes on, coming from the Clinton Foundation. And then, it came out 6 months later, 5 months later, in this congressional hearing, and people were like, oh, you guys were right. Well, you're still full of crap, but you always seem to be right. I mean, you can't stop trying to impress these people a long time ago, and we just decided we're just going to do what we do. Let the chips fall where they may. This isn't a beauty contest, because if it was, we'd win every damn time compared to some of these other journalists out there. But, yeah, it's not a beauty contest. It's not a popularity contest. We don't really give a shit if you like us or not. We're on a mission from God. Where have we heard that before? But yeah, we have a certain mission. We want to disassemble the FBI and dismantle the Justice Department so they can be rebuilt again in the strength and likeness the Founding Fathers had in mind, not this corrupt circus that it has morphed into. That's our mission. So
I encourage you to listen to that Thomas Paine podcast in full on this little known lawsuit. Again, I'm Michael. This is the Patriot Hour. God bless, Godspeed to each and every one of you. And where we go one, we go all. The link will be down below in the description box. Take a look. It'll be the very last thing at the very end of everything else.
Trump on Ukraine and Biden blows up. So every time they throw a rock at Trump, they get hit. So here's what we should look at. Why did the State Department not act when they were told about the conflict of interest with Hunter Biden regarding the Ukraine, right?
Right.
You know what letter that is, Grover?
I think so.
What letter is this?
Q.
Q. This is indeed.
Trap, 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 trap.